So an update on TrackDNA. What I've done is created it now as an actual instrument that runs within a DAW. So there's a plugin. It's now running here. And we can do all the same sorts of things that we did before. We can analyze a track and we can break it all up and look at the stems and that kind of thing. But what I have added is a bit more in the way that it handles loops and kits. So if I go to splice here and we'll drag this in. So here's a loop, and I'm starting with one that's a breakbeat because that's often some of the more difficult loops to deal with, particularly if you're going to try and turn it into a pattern. So I can adjust the sensitivity here so that it hits on all the transients. Now I could go through manually and make these a bit more detailed. In fact, I'll put a manual point there where it didn't quite grab it and another manual point there. Let's have a listen. So we've got a bit of a double kick on that, but I'll leave that for the moment. So what I can do now is I could slice this out to a kit. So I'll press slice, and now we get each of these individual hits. And this is actually a drum machine now, so these pads will all actually respond to MIDI, and I can trigger them. And so what I could do now is I could just drag this MIDI over here into the track itself. We won't import the tempo, and let's just have a look at that. And you can see here, this is what we saw last week really, so is that we've got a sequence of notes here playing all in a row, and this is just triggering each bit of the of that loop sequentially. Okay, so that's fine, but that's not really what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was to turn this into a drum kit. Now, in order to do that, I would have to manually go through each of these splices, work out which one's the kick, which is that one there, drag it over, put it into a drum machine, and then try and get that pattern to play, which is, it's a bit manual. It can be done, but it's not easy. So I tried to do something else instead. So let's go back to our original loop that we've got here. Instead of sending it out as splices, as little pieces of that loop, I'm going to call this button here Audio to MIDI Kit. And so this is going to go out to the cloud. I've rented some space on a really powerful GPU external processor, about $15,000 GPU. And I've trained a neural network in terms of what each different kind of drum sounds like. So I gave it like 20 different kicks and 20 different snares and a whole bunch of hi-hats and claps and all sorts of stuff like that. And now it will actually do recognition the same way as what you do with something like facial recognition, and it can identify exactly what each of those different kind of drum kits actually is. So we'll leave this alone for a bit. It'll take a few seconds while it does it all, and then it will come back and it's going to allocate each of these components. It's basically going through this entire loop and working out which bit's the kick, which bit's the snare, and here we go here, and then it's allocating these to pads. So let's listen now. Okay, now it does sound a little bit different, and that's because it's identifying, it's using basically the same drums all the way through. So this is now our kick, and you see it says kick under there, side stick, snare, clap, and closed hat. So because this is now actually a drum machine, I could swap out that snare and I can load it from my own library. This is something else I've added here. So let's give it like a 909 snare. And that side stick actually, let's change that. We'll make that pick that out of a clap or something. Let's have a listen to it now. Okay, now because it's completely dynamic, I can also change each of those. So I can pitch up the clap. I've got envelope control on it. Make it some more. Okay, so total control over it. Get the idea. Now let's drag that out. So I'm going to get rid of this pattern that I had here before, and I'm going to now drag the new MIDI out. Let's have a look at that. Now if you look here, I'll try and make this a bit bigger. You can see now that we've actually got a proper MIDI pattern playing. So that is an actual drum pattern. Now there's a few tricky things going on here that are a little bit more than just doing the neural net on the drums. One thing I did do, which I found, was some of these patterns would have hi-hats and rides going across the top of them, and you couldn't separate them out, because when you're dealing with a loop like this splice here, you can't detect transients that last right the way across a few bars or are on top of other drums. So what I did here was I actually filtered it first. I did a high pass filter and then did a process layer just for hi-hats and rides and cymbals, and then combined those patterns back. So this is why you can actually see in this pattern here there are overlays which you couldn't get if you'd just done a normal splice. So we're actually going to be able to get things like 16th notes across the top of the rest of the pattern. So that's where we've got to with it so far, but it's kind of working really, really well. So we'll leave that now and see what I come back to next time.